Look back in history and I think you'll find most of history's great leaders had a massive downfall after their time in the sun. Countless Roman leaders did very well until they didn't, and then they got stabbed in the back in the dark streets of Rome. Winston Churchill fell out of favour after the Second World War, and the KFC Double Down looked great, but actually it was impossible to eat, so it was a bit rubbish. Now, I would argue the Volkswagen Golf is on a downward trend now. The latest version just feels a bit phoned in, leaving its rivals, like the Peugeot 308, time to step in and upset the apple cart. So the question is the new Peugeot 308 the new king of sensible hatchbacks? Let's find out. Well, certainly from a looks point of view, hopefully you'll agree, the Peugeot 308 looks very interesting and I think a bit more premium and a bit classier than the latest Volkswagen Golf. All models get LED headlights. This is a top spec GTE one because press car, so it's got matrix LED headlights as well. It's also a very modern car in terms of its drivetrains. You can get it as a petrol, as a diesel, as a hybrid, as a plug-in hybrid, and this is the fully electric e-308. Now, what does all this mean? Well, it means it certainly isn't cheap. Just like everything else these days, prices have gone up. The 308 now starts at £28,000 for an entry-level one, all the way up to £42,000 for this top spec electric one in GT trim. So what do you really get for your money? Well, that's the next bit of the video. That's quite handy, that, isn't it? It's almost like I scripted it. I don't, it's just all up here, in with all the dark thoughts. Well, every version certainly gets rear parking sensors and a digital dashboard as standard, and because this is a GT model, you get Peugeot badges, shields on the wings, just like a Ferrari, but otherwise it's not that Ferrari-like. It's just under 4.4 meters long, so it's 8 centimeters longer than a Volkswagen Golf. And there is an estate version of the 308 called the 308 SW, that's 30 centimeters longer, so a little bit shorter than a Skoda Octavia. Now, in terms of the electric bits and bobs on the e-308, it's got a 51 kilowatt hour usable battery, good for about 250 miles in the real world, a bit less today because it's freezing cold. You can charge it at up to 100 kilowatts, which means you can use a fast charger to go from 20 to 80% in about 30 minutes. And on a home wall box, you can get a full charge in about 8 hours. Now, it does add quite a lot of weight, the electric one. Still only 1.7 tons, which in the EV world is a featherweight, but it is 300 kilos heavier than the petrol version. Right, let's hop inside the 308 and I'll give you a bit of a guided tour from the back seats. They all get Peugeot's classic iCockpit, small steering wheel, you look over it at a digital dashboard. That is standard on all models, that digital dashboard, but it's slightly 3D in higher spec ones. And I have to say, it does work for me, this, I'm 6'3", but I have to have the steering wheel really low down by my kneecaps to be able to see the dials fully. It works better in Peugeot's SUVs. Also, on the negatives, it does feel a bit cramped down there in the footwell. If you like to man spread while you're driving, you'll find that your knees are jammed into the door and into the centre console. It's a bit like they forgot to leave room for the driver. But otherwise, I'm pleased to report, it does feel premium in here. It does feel like a £42,000 car. I like the inclusion of the Peugeot 408's new infotainment system, which is big, bright, beautiful, and it's got wireless CarPlay and Android Auto. And you've got these shortcut buttons underneath on this screen called iToggles, and you can customize those. I would say, even with these physical buttons down there, it takes too many presses to change the temperature and to turn on your heated steering wheel and your heated seat and things like that. The heated steering wheel seat from, I think, mid-spec trims upwards. But yeah, too much prodding, not quite enough instant access to things. The glove box is a decent size though, and you've got felt-lined door bins in each door so things don't rattle around. And under here, you have got a bit of storage as well as a USB-C in there. So yeah, it's a good cabin. It feels nice. It could just feel a little bit more spacious up front. In terms of rear seat space, it's actually okay. I'm going to hop in and show you what an adult looks like, but this is what it looks like with 2 child seats. This is my 2-year-old seat, and she can fully kick the back of my seat while I'm driving, which is a bit annoying, but that's a common problem in all hatchbacks. They're not big SUVs, and my 4-year-old actually has a reasonable amount of space over there. Rear seat space in the 308 is actually kind of okay. I am tall, I'm 6'3", I'm quite lanky. That's my driving position, and I've got a cutout here so my knees fit, but that's rock hard plastic. So if I want to spread a little bit, I get bruised kneecaps. Footroom is okay because they've chopped the battery up so it doesn't raise the floor too much. And headroom is actually fine, but I will hit my head on this getting out because I'm a clumsy oaf. I've got two USB-Cs down here, but they're still in blocks that look like USB-As. I don't know, just looks a little bit of a cheap way of doing that. But otherwise, it's all right, it's comfy enough. And if I shut the door, is it claustrophobic? No. Right, let's have a look at the 308's boot and backside. The reversing camera appears on mid-spec Allure models and upwards, and the boot space is actually kind of all right. You've just got under 420 litres of boot space and a hat in normal versions. That drops to 361 litres in this all-electric version because you've got batteries and spaces for charging cables under here. That's the same as well for the plug-in hybrid. Now, the estate version of this gets more than 600 litres of boot space, so it's a lot bigger, but again you lose 60 litres of that if you go for the plug-in hybrid, and there's no electric version of the estate car yet. Oh, and Allure models get the ski hatch so you can poke things through, but otherwise it's just a space with a few hooks, nothing fancy, no levers to fold the seats, no 12-volt socket, it's just a boot. So far we've learnt that the 308 looks great, has a nice premium cabin and is kind of practical enough, but how does it drive out on the open road? Let's go and find out. Right, let's go for a drive. I've just about got used to driving this with the small steering wheel, and it does sit quite low to my legs, and I do kind of fist myself in the thigh every time I get to a roundabout. I don't have that problem in Peugeot's SUVs because you sit a bit higher up, but in this it is just about okay, and I'm 6'3", but otherwise this is a very relaxing car to drive despite being a heavy EV. The suspension does a good job of soaking up the bumps, and I can only imagine the lighter 1.2 petrol and 1.5 diesels, both with 130 horsepower, are even more comfortable. The hybrids, by the way, are 180 and 225 horsepower, and then this electric one has got Stellantis' new 156 horsepower electric motor, but you only get that if you're in sport mode. Otherwise, if you're in normal, you get 136 and a bit less in eco again. I've been getting a real world 235 miles range out of this, but it is pretty cold at the moment. But yeah, otherwise to drive, it feels, oddly, like a Peugeot 308. That means it's darty, it feels nimble. It doesn't feel like the old school French hatchbacks, which would do oversteer and make you feel like you're going to crash. Car journalists think that's fun, but I don't. I like staying alive. But still, on a country road, it grips, it turns, and it just feels quite nice. And when you do put it in sport mode, down here, it feels properly punchy as well. On paper, the 0 to 62 time is 9.8 seconds or something, which sounds very average. But when you put your foot down, you get lots of instant electric shove, and you go along in relative silence. And on the motorway, this is a pretty quiet place without too much wind noise because the door mirrors are quite small, and it's not an SUV, it's low to the ground, so it's reasonably aerodynamic. Now, foibles with this car that I've found are a bit weird. There's this shiny bit of plastic up here on top of the dashboard, and that reflects in the windscreen. It doesn't quite cover the shininess of the instrument binnacles. That reflects all the time in the windscreen, which has got on my moobs quite a bit. And the other things I've mentioned about having to press too many things here while you're driving to change the temperature and things like that. But otherwise, it's a really nice car to drive. The brakes just feel normal in this electric version. There's no sudden jump between physical brakes and regeneration and things like that. The indicator noise is possibly slightly too loud. How's that for a very minor quibble? But yeah, out of a junction, you boot it, you go reasonably quickly, but still I would probably, if I were me, and I am me, sorry, I'll get the 1.2 petrol. So it's a lot lighter and a bit more engaging. I know it's only got 130 horsepower, but it'll just be more me, frankly. Oh yes, and if you're looking at buying the electric version, you'll note there aren't any paddles behind the steering wheel to adjust your regeneration. You've simply got a small B button down here, which gives you one level of regeneration. And it's kind of not quite one pedal, it's just quite a severe slowing down when you come off the accelerator. It's fine, I wish there were different levels of it though. Right, I'm just going to interrupt with a quick word on efficiency while I'm sat here charging, eating my Christmas sandwich. I'm getting 4 miles per kilowatt hour on average in this car, which is pretty good, but it does mean if you've got a 51 kilowatt hour battery times by 4, you're going to get 204 miles of range or something. My maths is terrible. The car's telling me I'm going to get 235, so I think I can get that up if I drive a bit more carefully and probably eat fewer massive sandwiches with sausages and bacon in. But I don't want to stop doing that. Give me a petrol car, then I can eat what I want. And one of my colleagues has whinged that the P button that you press to put this car into park, like all automatic Peugeots, is just a bit too small. Make your pee bigger. I wish I could make my pee bigger. Anyway, on that note, we're going to stop being a child, be quite impressed by how this drives, and go back to me and the lay-by for a conclusion. At the start of this video, I said the 308 is taking on the Volkswagen Golf and stands a better chance than ever of being better than the current Golf. And do I stand by that? Yeah, I do. I think this has just got a better ambience about it. It feels a bit classier. It feels a little bit, just a bit more premium. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but yes, Peugeot is now up there, Volkswagen, and has beaten it. I would say though, the electric version is expensive at £42,000. And in my experience, I've seen Peugeot electric cars like the e-308 lose their value really quite quickly. So I reckon this might be 10 grand cheaper in a year's time on the used market, just as a guess. But yeah, I reckon a regular petrol or diesel is the way to go. I would quite like the estate version. And then you've got one of the sharpest looking, nicest interiors, enough practicality. It's just a nice all-round package. Well done, Peugeot. You've made a good car. Anyway, thank you for watching. If this has been entertaining or useful in your hunt for your new car, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel because I've got plenty more car reviews coming very soon. Some slightly faster and louder things than this from BMW's M range, perhaps. Go down to the comments and leave me the French word for windshield, and I'll see you next time.